Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. For the past week, I've been playing New World again for the first time in a year, which really means it's my first time since my first time. Like many others, I bought into the original hype and jumped on the New World bandwagon when it was released in 2021. Unlike most people, I didn't really know what to expect, and I stayed away from too many spoilers to keep the game fresh. As it turns out, that didn't really help the state of the game, and I ended up quitting the game about 35 hours in. So now that I've returned a year later, there are a few things that I wish I knew when I came back. This is information that will be helpful for new players, as well as people like me who maybe didn't get to experience much of the game outside of hunting turkeys, chopping down trees, and RP running from one end of the map to the other. So let's go ahead and jump into it with 7 things that I wish I knew before returning to New World. First off, I started playing the game a week before the Brimstone Sands content dropped. But before I jumped back into the live version of the game, I sunk almost 8 hours into the PTR and started a fresh character. If you are someone who feels like it might just be a little too overwhelming to pick up an old character that's already leveled, then I would recommend starting a new character just for the sake of enjoying the new leveling experience, which goes all the way up to level 25. The main story quest has been completely revamped, and I feel like I understand where my character is going and why. Not only has the main story quest been updated and streamlined, but you will also encounter random voice lines and whispers as you complete portions, which will give you a sense of wonder and excitement to find out what's next. Next up, let's talk about storage. Your storage from the towns that you visited are now all linked and accessible from any storage location. This is a very welcomed update, and even a filthy casual like myself was frustrated by the fact that I could not access all my storage from a single location. This update may wind up changing the way in which you decide to approach your leveling journey as well. If you're someone who wants to hit the woods and chop down as many trees as possible and gather all the things that New World has to offer, then you may want to run to as many towns as possible early in the game. This will give you a tremendous amount of storage for some binge crafting sessions, in addition to unlocking plenty of fast travel points early on. This will also really help to streamline all of your questing efforts later. You just have to be willing to do all the running early, and that being said, you'll also be gaining a significant amount of experience from discovering landmarks, locations along the way, plus any gathering that you do. This will put you ahead of your main story quest line and give you the stats early on to make leveling those weapons a breeze. Next up, let's talk about New World's dungeons, or expeditions, which no longer require keys to enter. Instead, there's a daily cap in place that will not let you exceed 25 dungeons. The only barrier to entering a dungeon is that at least one person needs to have obtained the Azal Staff, which is something that you receive via the main story quest around level 25. Even the level requirement is less of a requirement and more of a suggestion. The group that you're running with will just need to be okay with the fact that your character may be under-leveled and under-geared. Another note on dungeons is that there's now a dungeon finder in the game. You can queue for any dungeon from any location. The only caveat to forming a group is that the group leader can only invite people who have the same PvP flag status in place. I ran into an issue where I went to form a group for Amrine Excavation, which is the first dungeon that you gain access to around level 25. I created the group lobby while I was flagged for World PvP, and I didn't have anyone queue for my group for over an hour. I then went back to town and removed my PvP flag and created a new lobby. I had a full group ready to roll before I could complete a quest. When the group was full, I was transported to the dungeon, and when the dungeon was over, I was dropped back into the world where I had left off, with my bags full of new loot. Another thing I wish I knew is that leveling up your professions has now been streamlined. This was something that I was not 100% sure of when I compared PTR to the live servers, but after doing some research and going down my own YouTube black hole search, I was able to confirm that crafting experience has been streamlined to make it so that the experience gained from crafting has now been normalized. This will help anyone who is returning or new to the game level up their crafting without having to follow a detailed guide on the order of operations regarding what to craft and when. You will essentially just be able to go out into the world and gather to your heart's content before returning to town and crafting whatever items you would like. This will be a huge time saver and likely help to incentivize people to start fresh without feeling like they would be losing whatever time they had already invested in the game. The primary reason I quit New World the first time around was because it got to be incredibly repetitive. The main reason for this really boiled down to the town board quest system. In the waning hours of my initial New World experience, all I was doing was spamming the town board and all the quests that went with it. On the PTR, I was able to level seamlessly to level 27 without ever spamming the town board or even relying on it as a source of experience. This made the whole leveling experience way more enjoyable. The main source of my experience came from gathering, crafting, and just doing my main story, profession, and side quests. Granted, it's still probably worth picking up the quest off of the town board, however, you should no longer need to rely on it as a primary source of experience. This was great news to me, and hopefully music to your ears as well. Speaking of music, you can now be your own one-man band in New World. I don't know when it happened, but instruments have been added to the game, and you can find someone looking to entertain in every town. You will find that while completing quests, looting mobs, or running dungeons, that you will find sheet music for you to be able to perform in Guitar Hero-like fashion. New World did not have much casual content, or even fun or silly things to keep people entertained, engaged, and social in its previous state. Even the crafting and gathering were more hardcore, considering the time investment required to max out those skills. However, with the addition of music into the game, you will find people just casually hanging around town, looking to cheer on a good performance or razz a bad one. At the end of a song, there's a window of time where you'll be able to accept tips from onlookers, which can become a decent source of income if you find some overly generous individuals. Additionally, performing music can increase your standing within an area, and allow additional benefits such as experience gain, increased storage, faster gathering, or an increased rate in which you progress your standing with a region. All of these serve a viable function, but one area of warning would be to avoid the noob trap that I fell into. Try to not opt into the experience reward. This may benefit you in the short term, but keep in mind it only benefits experience gained within the territory, and then once you reach level cap, it becomes a dead bonus. You're much better off adding to your storage coffers or increasing your gathering for the sake of late game benefits. This was something that I had forgotten after so much time away, and I ended up picking increased experience every time it was available. And unfortunately at this point, I don't think you're able to swap those traits at max level. Good thing fresh servers will be rolling out soon. The last tip that I can offer both new and returning players is pretty simple. Try out all the different weapon combinations and play what you enjoy to maximize your game experience. The Greatsword will be the new weapon that goes live with Brimstone Sands, and one of the things that separates it from other weapons, other than it just being flat out badass, is that it scales evenly with both dexterity and strength. This really opens up the amount of weapon pairings and makes it so that your build is less locked in. Additionally, respecing your character traits is free until level 20, and even after level 20, the cost is negligible, so swap to your heart's content while you level up so you can discover a playstyle that works for you. I'm sure there will be plenty of videos and meta builds that emerge again, telling you what stats and what weapons to play for both PvP and PvE. Just enjoy the game and play it the way you want to. You'll have more fun doing so. And given that content is flexible as you level, you won't need to worry too much about filling a typical archetype or role for the sake of completing a dungeon or purging corruption. One last bonus item that I would like to talk about is New World's PvE endgame content. This is not something I have recorded footage of because it didn't exist a year ago, and it's not something I'm actively participating in, as I've recently followed my own advice and I've made a new character. When I told friends that I wanted to give New World another chance, the primary reaction I received was, "Why? They don't even have any PvE." And this was of course coming from people who didn't keep up with patching over the last year. So to educate someone who might have the same reaction, I will say the following. Sure, New World is a game that was built around player-driven PvP to survive and thrive. However, it seems that the developers have been layering some additional PvE content over the past year that I'm really excited to try. The first of which is called Dungeon Mutations. These are regular dungeon expeditions that have additional affixes to mobs and bosses, in addition to scaled difficulty as you move harder into mutations. The mutated expeditions have 10 difficulties to allow for more challenging content. Each mutated expedition applies an elemental mutation, buffs to mobs, and a curse to players. The curse changes each week to match the elemental mutation. If this is something that interests you, I would suggest heading on over to pvebuilds.xyz for more information on frequently asked questions, mutation rotations, weapon skill trees, builds, and a leaderboard section. The second form of PvE comes from PvE arenas. These are boss encounters for groups of 5 people that is meant to be built around the holy trinity of tank, DPS, and healing group composition. The last PvE content that I will touch on has to do with closing down corruption portals, which you'll be introduced to as you level via the main story questline after you acquire your Staff of Azoth. These portals are clearly marked on the map, and you will know if you've come across one if your screen is covered with black and red smoke. Each of these corruption locations has a suggested level, and the amount you contribute to shutting down the corruption directly correlates with the reward you receive at the end. Additionally, corruption invasions can occur, and you can participate once you're above level 50. Currently, these happen in-game about once every 4 days. Based on information that I've found, 50 players can participate at once. The invasion itself has 8 waves of corrupted, and the players need to defend the fort and stave off the invasion. Rewards will again be distributed based on overall contribution, as well as how many waves you were able to defeat. So hopefully this video is as helpful to you as it would have been to me. I came back to New World expecting that my choice in quitting would have been validated. Instead, I found that New World really has gripped me in a way that I didn't expect. The Brimstone Sands update will be the biggest content update yet, with a new region introduced and new mysteries to explore and discover. If you're coming back for the patch content, or just coming back after a long vacation like I did, let me know how you feel about the last year of development in the comments below. And as always, you can catch me streaming most nights on Twitch, where I'm currently enjoying my New World Fresh Start journey.